one of the most controversial and seemingly endless debates in environmentalism is the role of DDT and the role of public health insecticides in general in disease control programs. Every time anybody makes the point about the value of DDT in disease control, letters to the editor start streaming in, and the blogosphere comes irate with irate posts, often with some outrageous and often ad hominem attacks against people like me and my colleagues. While the actors involved have changed and have certainly increased in number, the arguments, however, have not changed that much, and many of the same arguments that are found in Silent Spring we see repeated again and again now. It's first of all important to make the point that Rachel Carson in Silent Spring did not call for DDT to be banned. It's something that did happen 10 years after her book was published. But the way in which she denigrated the use of DDT and made some pretty anodyne comments about the use of DDT in public health was a smart tactic. It allowed her to dress up her anti-DDT campaign as a real concern over public health programs, and I'll explain what I mean in a bit. It's also important to know that Rachel Carson really stands apart from people like William Vogt and Paul Ehrlich in the population control movement, in that she didn't directly call for DDT to be banned because it was so good in saving lives. They did. I mean, they really set a new standard in callousness in directly advocating against the use of any life-saving technologies in poor countries because it would, in their view, lead to population growth, which for them was a real problem. Carson was dismissive about the importance of DDT in public health programs, but we can't find the same callous disregard for human life that you get from someone like Paul Ehrlich. But while Carson was working on Silent Spring, and long before that, DDT was being used, and used in quite large quantities in the United States in disease control programs. And it's inconceivable that she didn't know about the use of DDT in this way. And to be clear, what we're talking about is, in public health use, is the spraying of small amounts of quantities of this insecticide inside houses, not the aerial spraying in large quantities. Put away that great image from North by Northwest where Cary Grant is running through the field trying to be killed by the crop sprayer. That's not what we're talking about now. I'm not quite sure what they thought they were going to achieve. They were going to drown him in DDT or something. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. In our chapter, we provide data on the use of public health in the United States and around the world. Let's give you a few examples. Between July 1947 and December 1949, over 4.65 million houses in the southern states of the United States were sprayed with DDT inside to control malaria and protect people against Anopheles mosquitoes. Over a 5-year period, that program reduced the burden of malaria in the United States by over 90%. But malaria wasn't the only disease that it was being used against. It was, in 1946 alone, 450,000 houses were sprayed to control murine typhus spread by fleas. DDT was also used to control houseflies that spread the dysentery. And in 1969, up until 1969, the CDC used DDT to control urban yellow fever and dengue. Now, all these diseases were controlled or either eliminated or controlled by use of DDT. And of course, it wasn't just in the United States. The most famous uses of it around the world, DDT use did eradicate malaria from the US, from Europe, from island states like Taiwan. But it was in countries like Latin America, India, large parts of Africa, Sri Lanka, that DDT was used most dramatically, almost eliminating malaria in some cases. And it was this use that led to the global malaria eradication campaign in 1955, led by the World Health Organization and paid in very large part by the United States. Now, ultimately, eradication of malaria was not achieved. It's still a disease that is being battled. And so because of that, many people characterized this program as a terrible failure. Well, in that it didn't eradicate the disease, it did fail. But consider that during that period, 1 billion lives were saved primarily through the use of DDT. And by any other measure, this is an astonishing success. Now, none of this kind of escaped Rachel Carson's attention. But for the most part, she just ignores these beneficial uses of the insecticide.